It's real. You can feel it. You can smell it. You can taste it. Maybe don't do that last one. This is, of course, the Kia Tasman, a car that was a dream and then a rumor and then an enigma, and finally it's here in Australia. I mean, not quite if you're looking to buy one of them. This is a pre-production one. It will be here very soon though, and we've been granted a quick test drive, off-road test drive of the Kia Tasman right here on our shores. So the question is, does it have what it takes to take on its most famous rivals like the HiLux, the Ranger, and the D-Max? And importantly, does it have what it takes to keep its newer rivals at bay? Cars like the Shark 6 from BYD, the Jack T9, and the GWM Canon Alpha. Well, we're going to touch on that a little bit, so stay tuned. Let's see what we think.
Sad news if you are hoping for a sneaky early bargain on this thing. Kia is so confident in its new ute offering that it has priced the Tasman in line with the big players in this segment. The range kicks off at $42,990 for a basic rear drive S-grade, but this pre-production one we've had a chance to drive is more reflective of a top spec X Pro. Now, starting at a touch under 75 grand, the X Pro is right there alongside the Ford Ranger Wildtrak, Toyota Hilux GR Sport, and even a step above the Isuzu D-Max X-Terrain. Yes, you only get the same 2.2 litre diesel engine we'll talk about a little later, but the standard equipment list for the Tasman reads more like a luxury SUV than a dual cab ute. Standard on this one are things like synthetic leather seats with heating for the front and rear rows, dual 12.3-inch screens for the multimedia and digital dash, surround view cameras, and a sunroof. From there though, it gets a bit clever. To toughen things up, the X Pro's wheels shrink a size to 17 inches and feature a specifically developed Hankook all-terrain tyre. It also gets a raised suspension height, electronic rear-locking diff with user-defined tolerances, an additional rock drive mode with low-speed cruise control feature the brand calls X-Trek, as well as an off-road information screen which can show a host of important readouts. On top of that, the Tasman gets a factory-integrated multi-stage brake controller with a towing panel allowing you to preset your trailer weight, which alters transmission mapping for better hauling power. It's all pretty smart stuff. For more on the standard spec of the Kia Tasman, make sure to check out our full written review and pricing story over at carsguide.com.au. But for now, given this car's imposing dimensions and passenger car-like specifications, there's certainly a way I can see it justifying its taller price for some buyers.
Okay, now design is one of the most controversial things about this Kia Tasman. I remember when it was revealed, people were like, oh, it's hideous, I don't know whether I'm gonna like it. Some people were fans of it. And honestly, it's one of those things that lately there's been a lot of cars like this. There's been cars where you think, oh, it's a bit ugly in the pictures, and then you see it in the real and you're like, oh, I get it. Or you see it in the real and you're like, oh, actually it's even more ugly than I thought. But the Kia Tasman keeps me confused. I really thought I'd either quite like this car or I would really dislike it in the metal. And I've been looking at it now for over 24 hours and I still can't decide. I have sort of decided how I think it reminds me of something. I think it looks sort of like an old military surplus truck. And I kind of like that because it hasn't got a retro style to it. It hasn't got an overtly modern style to it. It's just kind of like blocky and tough. The controversial lights, they do look a little small for its sort of big moustache face, which is a bit weird, and does leave them vulnerable because of course they're plastic and they're going to scratch. But other than that, I reckon this side profile is one of its sort of best angles. It really looks quite tough with these squared off wheel arches and the big rubber under there on this top X Pro grade. So look, I think it's tough, it's different, and if you want to set yourself apart from the crowd, this is kind of a good way to do it.
The rear three-quarter looks good too, with Kia boldly imprinting its logo on the tailgate and contrasting Tasman font work too, looking particularly appealing on this tan colour car that we drove.
One of the areas where the Tasman most shines is here in this cabin. It's spectacular in here, especially for this ute segment. It doesn't feel like you're in a commercial vehicle at all. It feels like you're in an upmarket SUV. You've got things like a two-tone steering wheel, at least in this pre-prod car. You've got lovely seats. Apparently they benchmarked quite a few rivals to design these seats, and these ones do feel good. We've been sort of bouncing around in them off-road a bit, and they're comfy. They've got enough side bolstering, and you sink into them quite nicely as well. Obviously they are electrically adjustable too in this high-spec car. Steering wheel feels good. It's got that cool like off-center Kia design on it. This dash has got a really nice kind of grate piece that runs all the way around with the little vents in it, which are a cool little sort of adjustment piece in there too. Screens, obviously you've got very SUV-like screens in here. So they're apparently quite big, but you wouldn't tell because this cabin is quite enormous as well. Like this car feels big, like it feels bigger than your usual kind of Japanese ute. It's nice and wide, it's got plenty of space in the center console, and that makes these big screens actually feel quite small, but they look good, they're sharp, they've got the latest Kia software on them, and possibly the most important thing, there's a whole bunch of shortcut buttons. These are touch panels, but they make a nice noise when you press them, which is good. And importantly, there's toggles for temperature, fan speed. You can switch through the modes as well. And you've got a hard toggle there for volume as well, which is really nice to see. Now, for practicality, down this center console, it is enormous. There are some really cool things about it. You've got 2 wireless chargers in the high-spec car. You've got USB-C there. You can swap those things around. You've also got a large bottle holder in the door and a pocket down there as well. But in here, there are 2 more with adjustable ridges, so that'll hold your bottles in place quite nicely. They are quite deep, so I did put a small coffee in here before and thought, oh my God, I'm gonna lose the lid if this car bounces at all. But apart from that, really good. One thing I really like, a piece of attention to detail in this car, is the fact that it's got the dimensions of this ute right here in the console. So if you're coming up to a car park or something and you're wondering if you're going to fit, you can just have a quick look in here and actually see. Not many cars do this. I don't know why. Every car should have this. Like, I remember Discovery 3's had them in this, sun visor thing, and I basically haven't seen it since. So it's nice that the Kia's thought of that. Also, this console is super versatile. You can lift this up. Again, you've got the dimensions of the car in there, but you've got a nice deep console box, 12-volt outlet in there as well. But for rear passengers, you can flip this open and they can use that as a sort of storage bay, or this comes all the way forward and you can put a laptop on there or something and do some work in here. So that's a really cool piece of versatility for this center console that I quite like. Let's have a look in the back seat. Okay, so before I hop in though, what I will show you is this rear area's got quite a bit of additional storage to it. So if you pull this tab here and lift this up, you've got a storage area underneath there. You could put snatch straps, something like that under there, and it'll stay nice and dry too. And air conditioning because it's in the cabin. And you can also pull these down if you want to put something on top here for like a bit of extra storage, and you can maybe slot a few smaller objects back behind there like you can on a lot of utes too. So straight away, that's quite versatile. Let's hop in. Okay, back seat. And again, it's much more like a passenger car in here than it is like a light commercial vehicle. It's really quite nice. Again, the seat quality is lovely. Really rare for the ute segment. There's rail-based adjustment for this rear row, really cool. And on top of that, you've got all these nice soft trims in the doors. So when you're being thrown around like, off-road, like we've been testing in this car before, you've got nice soft things to sort of brush up against, which is, again, quite rare for this segment, and sort of evidence that Kia's really thought about this thing this time around. Now, you've got a pocket on the top of the back seats. You could sort of stick a phone in there. That's pretty cool. You've got a USB-C port on the back of the seat here. Now, this is something I haven't seen, again, on any car ever. Kia's put like little sort of zipper-based pockets on the back of the seats here with like a neoprene finish, which makes them kind of waterproof. And that's cool, I guess, because if you're sort of jumping in and out of here and there's mud and water and God knows what flying around, you can put like an iPad or something in here and it'll stay dry. So I don't know, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that before. Props to Kia for trying something different. Down in the center console here, so obviously this is behind my own seating position. I've got quite a bit of room for my knees. I've got quite a bit of headroom here. Kia claims it's class-leading headroom. I don't know how you sort of benchmark that, but I will say I don't have a reason to doubt them because plenty of room for my head, despite the fact that this one has a sunroof. But again, down to the center console here, you've got big adjustable air vents. You've got a big 240 volt proper household sized power outlet in there, so that's really cool. And again, you've got a drop down armrest for storage, large pocket in the doors again. You got sort of 2 more bottle holders in there. They don't have adjustable ridges, so this bottle's probably going to go a bit crazy in here, but it's nice that you've got nice big ones at least. There's a slot that fits a phone, or that way as well. So look, pretty versatile in this back seat as well, and really quite comfortable, even when you're sort of being thrown around off-road. So look, I've got to say, this might be one of the best back seats in the ute segment, and it's nice that Kia is sort of pushing this as a point of difference. Okay, let's talk practicality and the tray. Of course, first things first, you'll like this little trick here. It's got a little weather sealed kind of tray here. I don't know what you're gonna use this for. Maybe snatch straps, something like that, gloves, bit of equipment that you don't want in the tray or in the cab. Maybe you could put a couple of beers in there, I don't know. But if you come around to the tray, we get to the important specs. So firstly, nice soft open tray. You've got a step down here, which is a clever little touch. We're seeing a lot more of that in this more competitive ute space. And in here, of course, you can fit both a Euro and an Australian pallet, which is really good. You've got this standard tub liner in this X Pro grade, and these rail system mounting things in the sides, those are standard, as is this full-size power outlet in the tray. You've also got LED lighting as well.
The capacity of the tray itself measures in at 1,173 litres, and check the dimensions for it on your screen now. The tub liner you see is also standard on the X Pro grade, while the payload measures in at over a tonne.
One of the other deeply controversial parts of the Kia Tasman is the fact that the 2.2 litre engine is sourced from the passenger car range. It's not a commercial diesel engine like some of its rivals have. But it's interesting. See the power figures on your screen now. Now those figures aren't that far off a lot of its rivals, and I think the important thing is, and what Kia tells us the important thing is the 8-speed transmission and how that's geared and how that plays with this engine will go a long way to making this thing feel up to the task both on and off the road. And the Australian team has had some sway in that transmission mapping, and there's some other pretty cool things you can do with it in the multimedia screen, like you can set it up for towing and it completely changes the accelerator response and the transmission mapping and things like that. So that's very clever. And look, on our brief drive, which we'll talk about in a second, it does feel pretty good. So I wouldn't completely write it off. I know there's people who are going to, and if you look at it here, you've got this enormous engine bay and this tiny little baby engine in here, but you know what? I think you might be surprised what it can do. Also in the front here, there's a big deal that Kia has made about cooling, because obviously it's one thing to have a diesel engine do yada yada whatever, heavy towing, all that stuff. But the important thing is when it comes to heavy load is making sure that it's cooled properly. And so they've got a upsized big fan in here. They've got a multi-stage sort of radiator cooling system in there too, to kind of account for those sorts of issues. So yeah, I think don't write it off is what I'm saying. The other thing, it's got struts for the engine bay. Makes it nice and easy to work on.
One thing a relatively small engine means is better fuel efficiency, and the Tasman, at least on paper, is better than some of its rivals by a small margin. See the figures on your screen now, but for what it's worth, it will consume less diesel than the 3-litre 6-cylinder Ranger, 3-litre 4-cylinder D-Max, or 2.8-litre 4-cylinder HiLux.
All right, so Kia Tasman, this is what you want to know. What is it like to drive? Now, obviously this is a preview drive. We're in a car that's probably closer to Korean spec than it is to local spec right now. So what we can tell you about the final production car is probably a little bit limited, but there are some pretty significant impressions just from the way that this car overall feels. Firstly, very SUV-like, as hinted to with the cabin's design and the feel of the seats and everything. This is a plush place to be. It is elevating for this ute segment in much the same way as the BYD Shark actually is. So I think the pressure is really on now for rivals to respond to cabins like this one and the cabin in the Shark as well. So that's pretty impressive from a get-go. It's very rare to be this comfortable when you're sort of tearing it up off-road. Now, on top of that, there's a few things that you should know straight away. Firstly, really light steering. This is both a blessing and a curse. Firstly, it makes it really easy to steer. It's got a really nice turning circle, so really moving it around like that is really a breeze. It's an easy thing to steer, but also it's so electrically assisted that sometimes you do kind of have to feel out where those wheels are as you're moving along. And so sometimes there's a little bit of, you got to tug on the steering to see, have I got traction? Oh yes, I do. And then I can push on. So it's not a deal breaker. It's not as though you can't feel anything in terms of what's going on at those front wheels or even at the rear wheels, that feedback through the steering. But, it is a little bit removed in that sense. Okay, what else do you need to know? Well, there's a few other things which are pretty impressive straight away as well. Firstly, the electronics in this car, it's all sort of fly-by-wire in here, and when you switch between them, even the drive modes, like going into 4 low, 4 high, it all happens like that. It's like instant. It's really clever. You don't have to wait around for things to engage. You're not sitting there in neutral waiting for, you know, your low range mode to clunk into place finally. It all just works really nice, fast, smooth. You don't really think about it when you're sort of driving around off-road like we've done today. On top of that, the other thing I've noticed is the transmission is also really smooth. You don't get those big sort of lurch moments as it sort of swaps through the gears. Even when you're in low range mode, it's quite smooth and clever in when it chooses to shift, and really sort of seamless for that drive experience. So that all feels really clever, and it sort of does speak a little bit to the way that Kia has had the advantage that they've got to build this thing basically from the ground up. They're not trying to put these clever electronic features on a 30-year-old platform. They've really started from nothing with this, and in a lot of ways I think that shows. All right, what about that 2.2 litre engine? Well, we haven't done anything too crazy, and we're not towing on this preview drive launch either, so I can't tell you what it's like when it's really at, you know, that peak of stress. But it does feel like, for a bunch of these off-road challenges we've been running, as though it has enough power. Here we go for the water crossing here. Yes. Plenty of grip. As long as you keep your foot sort of a moderate way down on the accelerator there, no power shortage either. Now, the one we're driving here is on tyres that won't be on the final car, at least not the top spec X Pro. That will get a special Hankook all-terrain tyre. This one's on Continentals. However, just the grip from the amount of articulation in this thing is really impressive. Whoa, yes, you can feel the amount of articulation as those tyres really kind of move around and grab all of the available traction, which is really, really nice to have. So yes, is it capable? The answer is yes. So let's do this real quick. So we've got to swap into 4 low for this real deep muddy section up ahead. And what you do, just go into neutral like that, shift it up like that. Literally, that's it, done. And we can drive again, you know? In some rival utes, that can take quite some time. So really unintrusive experience to swap between those drive modes. Now, the other thing is, for the most part, this thing remains really refined, even when you've got a lot of articulation going on, even when you're pushing that engine a little harder, you know, where it's sort of floating around. Let's push it up a little bit. So floating at 2,500 RPM now, you can definitely hear it, but it's not a big, nasty diesel clatter like some kind of truck engines that you get in rival products can be. This is still quite a refined experience, even when you're, you know, doing some pretty intense stuff like we're doing right here. And you've also got the advantage that it's got paddle shifters too. So when you are in this low range mode and there's a little bit of sort of clear road in front of you and you don't actually want it to stick in that high gear when you don't need it, you can just use the paddle shifters to like shift it up and be a little bit more comfortable on those nice straight bits of road. So on the whole, what do we take away from this experience? Well, obviously we're yet to drive this thing on the road, so it's a little bit hard to tell what it'll be like when you're in those freeway scenarios. We haven't towed with it, so we can't tell you much about that. But in these off-road tests that we have been doing, it's comfortable, it does feel capable, and the engine, I know it sounds a little small, but it's got enough grunt. So over a couple of moguls, for example, you can sort of just point it straight, which can be a little disconcerting with that light steering, but over it goes. It's really smooth, the articulation's really clear, the suspension handles it beautifully, there's plenty of clearance, at least at the front, and it does look really quite well. And that leaves us with just wanting to see how it's going to handle itself on the road. But that's another story for another time.
We don't have all the details yet, and we won't until the Tasman's ANCAP test, but it will at least include things like auto emergency braking, lane keep assist, and blind spot systems. Refer to the full review at carsguide.com.au for more, but Kia will need to be gunning for that 5-star ANCAP score if it wants to sell big numbers to fleets. Expect Kia's usual and very competitive 7-year and unlimited kilometre warranty. Tune back in closer to the middle of the year for more details on service intervals and pricing.
All right, so there you have it, Kia Tasman. I'll be honest, there's a lot that we don't know yet. We haven't driven this thing on the road and we won't be able to for a little bit of time just yet. But look, there's a lot here that is really promising. This has all the fundamentals to make for quite a competitive dual cab offering. And there's more to come too. There's a single cab and lots of things to look forward to later with the Tasman range. So stay tuned, we'll have more for you in due time.